Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope you have a lovely coffee or your favorite drink with you, because the discussions are going to get very, very interesting. I'm Upma Arora. I'm the General Manager at Level 3. If some of you don't know what Level 3 is, it's a partnership between Unilever Foundry and Padang & Co., which is an open innovation consultancy. We host about 70 companies there, a mix of good startups, tech startups, and SMEs, and we have about 7 corporate partners. Syngenta and Deloitte are one of our corporate partners. One of our ecosystem partner is Global SF, which is based in San Francisco, and through which we found Kelly, wonderful Kelly. If you want to know more about Level 3, you know how to get to me. I'll drop my email in there, so I won't waste my time here. This morning, I'm super excited because this topic has been talked about for a very long time, the whole future of work and how are we going to move forward with this. However, last year, I think it was one of those time machine things, and I'm borrowing this from Nicole's recent paper, which I will share with you. It's a fantastic report that you all need to read about, in talking about how do we humanize the whole future of work. And honestly, from a personal experience, it has been quite interesting. I'm 8 months pregnant. I had to be home. I was very fortunate for having COVID, because during my first trimester, I didn't have to go to work. So I didn't have to think about public toilet throwing up and, not telling people and all of that. And it put a lot of things in perspective, like, how do women really do it when they don't have that option? So all this is quite personal, but also it's very, very apt. And I've got 3 fantastic women over here who come from different backgrounds within this whole space of future of work. So I'll let them do the introduction, and then we'll kick off with the session. Hi, Bancy. How are you this morning?
Thank you. Okay, so I'll go on and introduce myself. So my name is Bancy. I'm a regional HR business partner at Syngenta. So Syngenta is a company that sustainably ensures that crops reach their full potential and we feed the world. That's how I like to describe the company I work for. So I'm based in Singapore. And before Singapore, I was heading people and organizational development for Africa and Middle East, based out of Nairobi. So my 3rd year in Singapore now, and looking forward to interacting with all of you.
Fantastic. Hi, Kelly. I know you're joining us from San Francisco, so we're taking your time in the evening. So sorry, thank you for that.
Oh, no, I'm so happy to be here. So yeah, I'm Kelly Dubisar. I'm a workplace design director at Gensler in San Francisco. I've been in the Bay Area for almost 14 years and was from Nebraska before that. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicole. I love the paper. I love the report. So we'll talk more about it. How are you this morning?
Thank you so much. I am wonderful, and just how energizing to be here with such amazing women and a wonderful audience. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a partner with Deloitte. I've been with our Global Future of Work program since we first established it 4 years ago now, which is hard to believe. So I spent the first 3 years leading our Global Future of Work Centre of Excellence based in Singapore, and then a year and a half ago relocated to Japan to continue driving our Future of Work business across the Asia Pacific region. And, the moment we are in right now is a moment that we have been waiting for from a future of work perspective, to really see that accelerated change for a long time, and for us, we believe this is where we really can move the needle on making work better for humans and humans better at work. So really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you so much. And, very apt, and I'll pick up on that. It has accelerated a lot of stuff that we've been trying to, future of work leaders have been trying to push for so long. So I'll open the session with, if you could just share with us, if 3 of you could share with us from your own experience of how has the pandemic changed our relationship with workspace, work-life balance, the policies that, we wanted to make a change in for a very long time and it didn't happen. I know it's been challenging and we've all faced a lot of challenges, but then let's look at, in your opinion, what are the opportunities that have come out of 2020? So I'll open it up to the floor. So anybody, one of you, kick it off.
I'm happy to start out if you like. I think your question really raises the bigger question that we've been focusing on in terms of, is the accelerated future of work that we've experienced for the last 10 months the future of work that we want for the next 10 years? And I think that then leads us to reflect on the amazing brilliance that we have unlocked. I mean, I think we have seen human potential at its best in ways we have never imagined possible, particularly when we think about the way we have seen usage and adoption of technology, the way that we have been using technology to collaborate, connect, to do our work differently. For many of us, using technology to do our work even more productively than we could have before, and doing that in a way that is also enabling us to nurture our well-being, being able to better adapt our working day and style to all of the commitments and happenings in our life. And I think, we have seen amazing things in pockets around productivity and everything. But then there is a reality of the unintended consequences that we've seen. So we've also seen that our working days are longer. We're spending more time online in Zoom meetings. We are seeing increased reports of anxiety, deterioration in mental health, particularly profound impact of remote working on women. We've seen a particularly profound impact on women in terms of jobs lost. And that profound impact, not just women, but working parents, as we've had to adapt to this new rapid shift to virtual work. But, I think in all of that, we have been able to unlock some of those pockets of brilliance where we can see, how do we start integrating technology into the way we're working in a way that is also designing well-being into the way we are working. And, I think this is really challenging, everything we've ever thought about in terms of work, workforce and workplace. And if we really think on where we've seen the brilliance, a lot of the brilliance has been where we've broken the rule book and where we've not followed the rules. They are the shining examples where we've been able to move at unbelievable pace. We've been adaptable. We've been resilient. When we go back to the rule books, things start to become harder. And so I feel that our big takeaway has been, yes, technology, there's an amazing opportunity. But if you look at those unintended consequences, they are all about the human element. So when we think about how can we sustain the brilliance that we've seen, how can we sustain those new ways of working, embracing technology, integrating well-being, that means we need to completely rewire the way that we focus on the human dimension in every decision, issue, opportunity that we navigate. So there's some of the things that immediately come to mind.
Fantastic. Bancy, what do you think? You deal with a lot of HR policies, so I'm very keen on hearing your point of view.
Yeah, so I think, Nicole, thank you. You've mentioned quite a number of things. I think I want to emphasize on leadership. I think this situation has put leaders in a situation where they need to do the things we've always thought we should do as leaders, but that we didn't always practice. Because we've had to build capabilities to lead in a crisis. And this calls for applying certain things like emotional intelligence, being vulnerable, sharing our feelings, just asking people how they feel, and shifting from just focusing on work and now focusing on the individuals. So that's one. Then we've been, of course, asking leaders to project trust, because now we are leading people that we don't have to meet with anymore. Projects are not collaborating in the same way anymore. And I've seen that employees are in very different situations. So we have to apply individualization. So we'll have a single mom at home who had to homeschool their child. We had two parents at home who had to use the same space and be productive, working for different companies, needing the same space, needing the same bandwidth. The situations were so different. We had employees who were taking care of elderly parents. And so managers were forced now to actually project trust in a very different way, and to just learn to pause and ask, how are you doing? At the same time, self-care for managers, because managers are also human beings. So people who are leading others also needed to demonstrate some self-care and how to go about that, to be there for other people and also to be there for yourself. I think that was that was a big call out. Communication as well, just making sure that it's frequent, it's transparent, it's truthful, and to just over communicate. Where can we get resources? How can we access them? If we are talking about mental health, holding those sessions, making sure that managers are leading by example, and understanding that their personal situations might be worse sometimes than their reportees. So I found that to be something that was amplified by this COVID situation, and balancing people and economics. Yeah. So just being aware that we need to still deliver on the results, but we need to put a human side first, because safety definitely had to come first. So I think I would just like to call out on the leadership bit.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And coming to you, Kelly, everybody's talking about us working from home and all of that. And, before this, it was all about fancy offices and access to facilities and things like that. Like the whole concept of workspaces have really, really changed, right? Like we've been sitting with some really fancy stuff, all empty. So how has it been from your point of view?
No, it's all of these. There's so many great, so many great things to tap into with what Nicole and Bancy have said. I think, from my perspective, I'm a workplace designer. I design offices. I'm very passionate about it, and I think what I've, really been, kind of spirited by is this idea of we've really ushered in a new era of autonomy and choice. Which had always existed in the office place to some degree, but it's being spread so much more equitably across the globe and across kind of our industries, and I think there's something about that that's so refreshing, that we're really looking at people being able to take control of their environment and their workday, and being able to take their home life and make something happen with their work life that benefits them as a person, and not just as, kind of a cog in a machine that needs to get the job done. And so I think the workplace and how that supports people has an amazing opportunity to do that. And what we're starting to see is the conversation around the built environment really being a space of community and connection, that it has a new purpose. It's not just about a desk, with your teammates and colleagues that you show up to every day, but it's about something that gives people purpose, and, celebrates the diversity of the employee base, and acknowledges that we all come from different experiences. We all need different things. And how can the workplace help support your whole, kind of work-life balance and ecosystem, which is a crazy big challenge, but I think one that, everybody's really started to, acknowledge that that's what we need to move forward. So I personally think it's very exciting. It comes with a ton of challenges on the built space, the policies, the behaviors, technology, where we kind of have to reinvent everything, which is really exciting.
Yeah, no, totally. We have lots of attendees over here and even on Facebook. So if you're watching us, if you have questions or comments, please keep them coming in. You don't have to hold back your questions and comments for later on, okay? And I'll try and pick them up as we go along. Just coming back to, Nicole pointed out a very pertinent thing about, access to technology, and that's been fantastic. Bancy, I want to know your point of view. Syngenta is a global company with with, a lot of the regional reach over here, where, the whole pandemic came in different ways, right? What was your experience in terms of, dealing with that kind of regional differences and addressing the challenges, but at the same time, looking at some of these fundamental policies, which were probably a global policy, but they cannot anymore be global because, it's highlighted the regional differences between either access to technology or, the cultural differences and things like that. So just we've spoken about this before, so just share with us on that. You're on mute, sorry. Perfect.
Yeah, okay. So traditionally, as a company, we've always valued safety, such that in our meetings globally, we actually start with a safety share. So 5 minutes, and somebody in the meeting would share any safety incident that has happened in the past, what happened, what was the impact, and how was that mitigated. And because of this culture, COVID for Syngenta was more of a safety issue more than anything else. And our global CEO and all the leaders were very fast to respond to say, please, safety first. So this was the slogan, safety first. APAC, we kind of set the pace because COVID started this side of the world before Europe and other places caught up with COVID. We were already struggling. And so we were kind of also setting the pace for Syngenta somehow on what needs to be done. And what the organization did is to decentralize decision-making to the countries, because the situation was really different for each and every country. The rules were different. Even within countries, you could find cities had more stricter rules than the rural areas. And our client usually is a grower. So our employees, in some cases, could not meet customers. In some places, could meet customers. So what we did is to make sure that each country is simply setting the rules depending on what is feasible there. But we had standard checklist. For example, safety, what is the gear that has to be worn, maintaining social distancing, checking with regulators, what are the things that need to be looked into. And this, in my view, went very well. We moved very fast. We were very fortunate because we are an essential service. We didn't have a lot of we did have a lot of restrictions, but because we are a safety organization first, we kind of already had these things going. In terms of technology, we're already using Zoom because we have a lot of matrix relationships within Syngenta. But of course, there were teams that were very local and had never had to use technology before. And already training sessions were put aside on how to use Zoom, how to use breakout rooms, what are other tools you could use. So I think in terms of capability building to use technology, we did well as an organization. The bit that I think we struggled is the soft things. I feel this is where we had the biggest struggle as a company, because helping line managers to understand what it meant to lead in a crisis, showing vulnerability, building the core capabilities and helping them to use them every day. This was really a struggle. Again, mental health and wellness became a big issue. And what we also did was to expand our offering. We already had an offering for wellness, whereby you could call a helpline. It's open to every employee in the company and the people who live with the employee inside the same home. They can use this, whether they are having issues with parenting or any form of addiction, they can actually call this helpline. So what we did is to expand the offering for this to include mental health. We also included not just the people in the home, because now families were completely torn apart. There were people living in the UK and somebody is stuck in the US. Children are stuck in a different country. So the situation was such that we had to adjust some of the policies, and this was one of them, to just make sure that you can cover employees irrespective of whether they are living with you in the same house or not, and to increase the offering that was actually included, to have things like mental health, to include the number of counselors, the number of sessions that people can actually have access to. So this was one of it. And then we also introduced employee listening in a different way. And because we thought, and I think that has worked, just to hear people out is what really matters. And we found things like our employees who are living alone, like who are bachelors and who are single, they were really, really struggling during COVID because they felt very lonely. And because we knew this was happening, we could form some groups of employees that had the same issue. And we could put them together in a group and have somebody leading that team to make sure that they're having activities, whether it's meeting together on Zoom and having a cooking class, or maybe doing some activities together, whether it's painting. But the answer is in listening, in finding out what's going on, and then in responding to those issues. So we've done a survey also on how employees would like us to work in the future. Would they like us to work from the office? Would they like to continue to work from home? And the trend, it's not consistent across Syngenta, but the trend by and large is to have a hybrid model. So currently we are testing this for 4 countries globally, of which Singapore is one of them. So currently in Singapore, we are testing this hybrid model. And we are required to work in office 2 days in a week only, but at least try to come to the office 2 days in a week. And the rest of the time you can work from home, but there's a maximum of only 10 because of social distancing. Yeah, so I found that listening, really, we can only know the issues if we are listening, and then we are addressing the issues promptly and on time.
I mean, that's a really good point, right? Like the whole COVID thing has brought about these soft issues to forefront because most of the organizations were, you know, in a way prepared to deal with the hard issues, but which they already knew about, or, you know, like how to communicate. And, you know, it was hard, but within a month, everybody was adopting the technology and things like that. What we didn't know was this human side of it, which brings me to you, Nicole. And, you know, I mean, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times now, but in one of your studies that you guys have recently done from Survive to Thrive, you know, you talk about humanizing the future of work. In terms of, in your opinion, how do you see technology being adopted in a way that we don't lose that human touch?
Yeah, Sean, I think there's a few dimensions to touch on here that really connect all of the wonderful points that Bancy and Kelly have highlighted. I think I would say there's a couple of things really important to start from when we are looking at humanizing. First of all, we need to have an enterprise mindset. We need to be looking at this as an enterprise strategy, right from the top, right from the bottom. So, you know, we first of all need to be right from senior leadership adopting this mindset of we need to embed the human element, as I said before, into every issue, every decision, every opportunity and challenge we navigate. So I think that needs to be a starting point. The next thing I would say is, which is probably not necessarily something that a lot of people have been focusing on, but that is putting work at the center. We can talk a lot about enterprise strategy, organizational initiatives, but the reality is if we want to impact an individual worker's experience, we need to think about a day in the life from the worker perspective. Every organization delivers its work through the construct of a team and through the work that every single member on a team does. So we really need to focus on, first of all, what are the work outcomes that we as an organization want to achieve, and then be really, really clear and deliberate on what are the capabilities we need. And those capabilities are going to mean human capabilities and technology capabilities. But the important thing here is we don't lead with technology and then work out how we can use technology to make us better. We need to start by saying, what are the amazing set of capabilities and potential that we have across our workforce? And then think about how could we and should we use technology capability to enable human capabilities in the way we work. And, you know, if we think about the hybrid workplace, as Bancy mentioned, you know, I think that it's probably fair to say most organizations have arrived at a conclusion that some form of hybrid model appears to be the future forward path. But then, you know, we also think about what Kelly said about most organizations are also embracing an aspiration where they want to empower choice and flexibility in how can we work. So if we try and piece all of that together, that's also where the leadership dimension becomes important. Because if we don't have inclusive leadership, if we don't have this capability that is thinking about how can I make sure that within the construct of a team, we are unlocking human potential, we are making sure that every one of our members is able to work in a way that aligns with their work style, with their personal circumstances, in a way that otherwise isn't chaos. Because imagine, if we don't have this orchestration, we have just got chaos, you know. And so I think that when you start focusing on how we design work itself, how you focus on building the leadership capability to unlock potential, and you actually lead through that construct of a team, then you start embedding all of these things. But at the same time, as we've been talking about, we've seen a lot of hardwiring over the last 12 months. Do we have the technology infrastructure? Do we have the org structure? Do we have the policies? But then I ask questions like, have you adapted your performance management framework? Have you adapted your rewards and recognition framework? What are you doing with succession planning? How are you making sure that these new behaviors and ways of working are being rewarded? And so, you know, I think that all of these types of key dimensions are really the way that we need to embed this humanized element.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You know, coming to you, Kelly, on, you know, all these things that we've been talking about is from the human point of view, and then you see, you know, being talked about hybrid workplaces, and, you know, I mean, so I'm going to pull in Gregory's question also over here about, you know, redesigning to cater for virtual and hybrid meetings and events and decentralizing workspaces. So how do you think the workplaces are now adapting to these bigger changes that's taking place in the way we interact with work and the way we use workspaces now?
Well, it's a great question. I just have to say, I love, Nicole, what you were talking about, because I get so many clients who are coming to us and they want a solution for their workplace, but to your point, what they haven't established is how do you want to behave in the future? What are the social constructs of how you want to work and how your people will interact? Because space is one element, just like we talked about, and technology is another, but you need that kind of ethos in order to determine what you want the workplace to do. And so I think, you know, I come from a background and primary focus of working with technology companies in the Bay Area and their offices across the world. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And what's been great is that conversation around, you know, the future of how they want to interact. And I think one of the biggest challenges everybody's acknowledged is that equity within the hybrid office. How does the person who's remote have just as much perceived value as the person, you know, that's in the room? Because for so long, the notion of being present was really what, you know, kind of drove raises in your profile in the companies. But we all know that no longer needs to exist. And so there's a lot of, I think, behavioral changes that need to happen in order to make that shift. And so a lot of what we've been focused on, you know, at Gensler in our work is really studying the ways that the environment can help support a more equitable experience, and how does the room layout, both in terms of the space you need, the furniture layout, and then, you know, technology to supplement, how does that all support the kind of equity between people? But at the end of the day, we have to really rethink and be really purposeful about our interactions and making sure that we're accounting for the people that aren't there. You know, I, before the pandemic, was somebody who was probably traveling 50% of the time. I lead design teams, and I was always able to connect with them virtually. But a lot of times I was the person who was like on my phone. I can't see a screen. People are having conversations. And so I know the frustration of what happens when you're not being heard, or you're not seen, maybe as having an equal voice. And I had the power of my position, which, allows a little bit of authority in that situation. But I think, for employers and for leaders and people that lead teams to be really thoughtful, and it will take more time for us to figure it out, but we do really need to kind of rethink how we structure meetings, how long they are. Is there a new kind of shared schedule where it's kind of individual work certain days of the week and teams come together on other days of the week? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for any one organization, but we do need to come to some sort of collective, kind of thought process behind it. And I think space has the amazing opportunity to kind of flex for the future. And my, a lot of the work that I've been doing is really looking at, how can companies make space do more than it needs to do? How can it have more than one purpose, so that it can flex for the multiple needs that need to happen over the course of the day or over the course of the week? Again, I don't think it's a perfect science yet. I really feel like the next year to 2 years are kind of a huge experiment, which I personally think is really exciting. For the companies that are willing to kind of test the future and how people want to work, and how does space and technology help support that, and where do we fail and we recognize it and move on and adjust from there, and what are our successes?
I can build onto Kelly's point, because I think what we've realized is just to go to the office to do exactly what you can do at home is not quite empowering because you've had to have travel time and to get there. So one of the things the leadership asks itself is, how would space in a hybrid model be more meaningful for work? And one word that came out consistently was collaboration. People want space to collaborate. And so we've removed the desks, because anyway, you don't need all those desks anymore. And we've created collaborative spaces. And when people go to the office now, most people choose days when they have a team meeting, or they want to work as an agile team, not necessarily in the same team, but they have an agile project. And they will go to the meeting, to the office on those days to use the collaborative spaces. So it's interesting what you say, Kelly, because we are seeing that evolving. And even for me, to be honest, if I'm just taking my laptop to go to the office and sit to do something I could do at home, I don't see the value in that sometimes.
No, that's really true. And I can say that from, level 3 is also co-working spaces, and we have other spaces, and we've seen most of it, like people are coming back to have meetings and to see people for team building purposes, and they're not coming back to work from the space. So we've had to kind of adapt to that too. All three of you have pointed out to a very important question about frameworks, when people weren't looking at frameworks before, and and policies where sometimes becomes a little bit we know that we need policies which are conducive to work from home or flexible working, but before 2020 there were some companies who were doing it very well, and then there were some who weren't doing it well, right? Can you guys talk a little bit more around a few policies that you see will significantly change going forward and will also have a positive impact because of this hybrid working on the mental and the physical health of the employees?
Maybe I can start out with a few comments. I'm not sure that we're going to see, specific policies and frameworks, in that some of my clients, for example, are very focused on revamping policies. Other clients have said to me, we deliberately do not want this led through HR policies. All we want to do is create a framework through the team structure so that every team, as they form, has a meaningful conversation, creates ways of working. What I do think, however, is going to become a standard approach to policies, frameworks, how we evolve, I think connects to what Kelly mentioned around experimentation and what Bancy hinted at before in terms of listening. I do think that data has been the hero over the last 10 months, you know, and what I do feel is implementing listening channels, data channels, to make sure that we are able to deeply understand where do we need to focus, what do we need to pivot on, how do we continue to build resilience and capability in being adaptable so that we can continue to respond and evolve. I think that's where we're going to see a focus more so than any specific, you know, I'd say if I had to place my bets on any policy, I would say I think hybrid ways of working is going to become a part of any strategy around workplace workforce. You know, I think hybrid is going to be here in some way. But for me, I feel it's the listening and the framework to experiment, pilot and evolve. That is what we're going to see sustained.
Very interesting. Bancy, Kelly, some thoughts on that?
Okay.
You can.
It's interesting. I mean, Kelly, from your point of view, you know, it would be interesting for you to hear all these things about, you know, listening and leadership. If you could share with us some of your recent experience in, you know, in the Bay Area, what are the new trends that you're seeing? You know, I'm quite keen to see how are you guys handling it there? How are you guys, you know, some of the, I mean, I remember the first time I went to San Francisco, I wanted to go and see Apple office and, you know, Facebook office. And I was like telling all my friends who work there, hey guys, can you have me over? Because, you know, you heard about these fantastic offices and all the free coffee and refreshments. So how are you seeing that change?
Well, so I think it's really interesting. You know, technology companies, quite frankly, yes, while they were very progressive in a lot of ways, if you think about the amenity offering, the, you know, kind of flexible time off, the, you know, contribution back to communities, in so many ways, these companies were really leading the markets. But when you look at their focus on real estate, at the end of the day, it was one desk per person. And it was easier for them to roll out that philosophy across the world, even though if you took an average, and if you took an average day in one office, you would see maybe 60, 50, 40% someday actual utilization of the spaces. But it's easier to manage at that point. And I think what we're starting to see, and what we had already dabbled with other companies that looked at technology companies as super future forward, but were maybe more innovative themselves, is the idea of the hybrid office and really leveraging real estate and the workplace to be about, you know, the choose your own adventure, about, you know, choice and autonomy, and realizing that, you know, people have different work styles, and the open office can be an ecosystem that supports those different work styles. And so it's not a one size fits all, you know, solution. It's about creating, you know, this landscape of like I said, of choice. And so what we're now seeing, you know, and I'm working on several projects where this is really starting to develop, which has been really exciting, is really putting that into implementation. But what that comes with is the challenges of how do you manage a neighborhood that technically maybe nobody owns, or maybe, you know, a group owns, but no desk is owned. And so there's sharing that's happening there. And, you know, what happens when you have neighborhoods that are essentially co-working, where anybody from the company, if you're traveling, coming from another building, can drop in. And so we're starting to see all of these other kind of job functions and services start to pop up as more hospitality focused services, whether it's an app that not only can schedule your room, but also remind you, you know, that you have to pick up your kid for soccer practice, or, hey, like, you've really been in the office too long, you should just go home or take a walk. Something that has, again, that kind of mental health or human kind of aspect to it. And so I think it's really exciting right now that we're starting to see people really embrace the human experience, and that workplace is about an experience, and that's what drives you wanting to come there. Because at the end of the day, you know, you can stay home, you can do your job from there, but there's so much value in coming together and collaborating and seeing the people, you know, that you care about, getting a break from home and the stresses that are associated with that. And so again, it's just a more thoughtful approach to workplace, both within the built environment and then, you know, what these people have to offer.
Yeah, no, that's right. True. Sorry, Bancy.
Sorry. Yeah, so it was just going to share maybe specifically on some policies where we've just made an adjustment.
It means if there is a
I could just share two, for example. Now, ergonomics is quite important. At work, we were always looking at health and safety. You know, what kind of desks are we getting for our staff? What kind of chairs are we getting? Do they have a screen? Do you have the right level eye for the screen and everything? At home, when we started working at home, everybody was doing their own thing, and we had so many backaches and, you know, all manner of things were coming up. So we just agreed, as the leadership team agreed, that we have to extend this to the home place, so that people are very clear on how should they set up at home to make sure that they're actually maintaining healthy posture, taking the right. But that is not a policy we had before COVID, because it wasn't necessary. So we are that's just a little bit granular on one thing. And then the other thing is also the medical covers, because in some countries, medical cover for work injury is at work. But now work has extended to home, and work has extended to Starbucks. When I decided to work at Starbucks today, because it's my space. So there are some countries that have had to relook at their policies on insurance and health and those kind of things, because they need to incorporate all this. And then we also had some places where, some countries where employees were getting an allowance to work from home. And then there were some people saying, but I'm now using my home as an office, and I'm paying rent. So what should how am I going to be compensated for using my home as an office space? But this is all, I think, to me, it comes back to listening, and there's no one size fits all. So listening and then responding, and just not being afraid to hear all the things that are going to come from employees. Sometimes they sound crazy, but they're not crazy. They're a need at that moment, you know?
Yeah.
So just to share that, some of the things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd like to come to the next point to you, Bancy. You know, the other aspect of the whole work from home and hybrid working is also going to highlight the issues of what would be the key skills that the companies would be looking for in individuals when they're hiring people. And I'm going back to Gregory's second very interesting question is, you know, because the virtual meetings and events will be, you know, they're going to stay for a very, very long time. And, you know, he's talking about, will a difference between somebody who can do, you know, have a great technical background be better and will be a competitive edge to somebody who cannot do it, or, you know, is not as good as at it. But what are some of the key skill sets that you are seeing when you're putting out the newer job descriptions, and when you're now re-looking at, you know, employment and things like that, and also internally, like what has been the skills upgrading process been within the companies?
Okay, so to be honest, from a recruitment point, I don't always look at technology as a requirement. I look for agility, learning agility. And we are looking for leaders who can lead with empathy. So to me, being somebody who recruits for senior leaders across APAC, I've never asked a technology question in an interview. I'm not looking for that, because technology is just an enabler at the end of the day. For the jobs that need to work with technology, like, for example, we have to do some product launches. Usually, traditionally, we put the growers together in a farm, and we had a big meeting, and we explained to them what the product will do, and we demonstrated what our products can do against another company's product on the field. Now, this we are doing differently. and it's enabled by technology. But I don't think technology should be, how to use technology effectively and to enable our work is important, but I would not look for somebody with technology skills, because to me, I'm looking for somebody with learning agility, because then they can adapt, and you adapt every day, and they can adjust themselves, and they are ready to learn, and they're hungry to learn. So unfortunately, I never look for that.
I mean,
in leaders, usually, yeah. I never look.
That's a really good point, right? Like
Yeah.
agility, you can learn how to use the technology. But you did mention earlier on how, you know, you had support for people to learn how to use Zoom and things like that, which is, you know, some of the stuff that in different parts of the region would be different, right? Like
Yes.
try teaching my dad in India how to use a video call compared to somebody in Singapore. You know, just the access to technology is very different. So are you guys looking at some of these skills upgrade stuff and how is that being incorporated within Syngenta?
Yes, so we are looking at it not more across countries, but more across functions, because functions are the ones that have to give an offering. So let me give an example in HR. In HR, we also traveled a lot, probably like Kelly. My job involved 70% traveling to go facilitate workshops with senior leaders and to do strategy sessions with senior leaders. I still have to deliver on that. It's not come out of my KPI, but I have to do it differently. So we are asking ourselves, which are the and we are running workshops. Actually, we've already run the workshops across functions on what are the capabilities we need now to do differently. In HR, for example, facilitating these workshops virtually, keeping people engaged in a whole day workshop, making sure people are participating and getting exactly the results you used to get when you have them in a room requires a very different skill set. Very, very different skill set. Very different skill set. But we've outlined that, and for the people who have to do this kind of work, we say, just try, give it a go. It's about trying and failing. And for me, who's been impacted by that, I can tell you I was really not so good at the beginning, but after doing so many sessions, I found I don't even have to prepare so much. I know exactly what the content is, what I need to do, and I just turn up. At the beginning, I used to take days, and then I call my colleagues and we do a dummy practice. And then I call the senior leaders in a room. And so I think for every team, it will be different. Like, I think what Nicole said is so important, to go back to exactly what's the work that needs to be delivered, how the team needs to work together. And the team needs to define that. I think we need to run away from a set of competencies like the past. We had somebody come in to say, these are the competencies, and then we all did the same thing as organizations. We need to go back into what do we really need to deliver as a team, define this, and then maybe we need help on how to build those capabilities, because sometimes we don't always know. But this is the approach we've taken in Syngenta. So we don't have a laundry list. We are simply working together as a team and determining what these are.
Fantastic. Nicole, very quickly, do you have some comments on the skills that we would be looking at?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, I think we need to make the pivot from immediate skills to focusing on how we're going to build adaptability and resilience, because we're in a world of perpetual disruption. And I reflect back to my son coming to me a couple of years ago in his final year of high school saying, "Mum, you are my future of work hero. Tell me the things that I need to focus on in making my university choices." My comments to him were, forget about the course that you're going to apply for. There is one big mission here. Make sure you learn how to learn and learn how to unlearn. Because if you just focus on that alone, how do we learn? We learn through teaming. We learn through experimenting, taking risks, falling over, getting up. And so I think we underestimate just how important it is to learn how to learn. If we can help our workforce learn how to learn, then everything else comes out of that, I think.
Yeah, no, that's my key takeaway from today. Learn how to learn and learn how to unlearn. That's the more important part, right? Kelly, on a very fun thing, food. how is the relationship between food and workplace going to be? I know Annie has a question about food and refreshments during events, and I can tell you, Annie, we at Level 3 do a lot of events, and one of the things that we were famous about, apart from the content and all the sensible things, was wine and cheese boards. And we all miss them. And, I'm still trying to find a supplier who can do individual boxes. But, Kelly, food and coffee has been quite a key factor in bringing people together. What's your opinion on that? With all that hygiene and things like that, what are you seeing?
Yeah, no, food's $1 million question, because it's what fundamentally drives all of us, right? And for me, wine. I think, what we're seeing is a staged approach, quite frankly, with a lot of our clients who have a super strong culinary program where, the kind of immediacy of going back to the office results in more of that kind of individual boxed lunch type of scenario. Fundamentally that is at odds with a lot of our clients who have strong sustainability goals. And so, I think they see that as a stopgap measure while people are returning and until people feel like it's safe, to interact the way we used to be able to interact. I don't know that anybody is fundamentally changing their future food programs from the way they were before. I think, again, they're taking time, that kind of 1.5 to 2 years, to try and experiment with new things. We have seen a lot of ideas around maybe, new inventions about food as delivered to clients, different models that allow even more variety than some of these kind of mega campuses that, they were providing in the past. I think food's going to take a bit longer to figure out, quite frankly. But at the end of the day, we still see it as a huge driver for people that are in the office. And so we have to figure it out. But I think there'll be a series of steps for the next couple of years, and people will interpret it a little bit differently. But
fantastic. I like to keep to time. So in the last 5 to 6 minutes, I have one question for all three of you, just as your parting, sentiments on the whole work from home. The pandemic has fundamentally changed the way, changed the mindset in the way our workplaces and where are we working from. Where do you see, what impact do you see? Will this be a lever on, I have to ask this, right? It's Women's Day month and so on. So will this be a great lever on the, gender equality and diversity? And also the other side of it, working hours, we're working a lot more, and, what's the mindset between, the trust between the managers and the employees? Are you working from home? Are you not working from? Or should we do 10 meetings just so that I can see you, so that you're working on it? So just your parting thoughts on some of these issues.
I'm happy to start. I think I would say, as I said at the beginning, we've seen human potential at its best. We have seen the brilliance that we can achieve. The art of the possible is clear. But those unintended consequences are all about the human element. So when we look at bottling the brilliance, so the opportunity is bottle the brilliance. To bottle the brilliance, we need to embed the human dimension in order to sustain, because we can't sustain the long days, Zoom fatigue and all of that. So our challenge is, we've seen what's possible. We know what we can do. We've learned. Now let's get to action. Embed that human dimension into every issue, decision, all the things we talked about, so as we can sustain it going forward.
Thank you. Bancy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think I agree with Nicole, and definitely things are going to change, I think, but it's not going to be one size fits all. I see a lot of people who definitely, especially in big cities, they're okay to have this hybrid model, but the people in smaller cities and in poorer countries, like for me in India and Thailand. Some of my employees just want to go to the office because it's so hot at home. They don't have air conditioning. So there cannot be one size fits all. That's just, that's what I think. And we have to be more listening, just keep on listening and just keep on responding. And like Nicole said, learning and unlearning. Yeah.
Fantastic. Kelly?
Yeah, no, I agree with what everybody said. And I think if it's such a turning point in what we're all experiencing, that if we don't take the opportunity to push diversity and equity forward, it's such a missed opportunity, and shame on us for not pushing those things forward. And so I'm super passionate about the shift that's happened, and with as much terribleness that's been associated with it, I think it has really unlocked, as Nicole said, our potential, and collectively, which has never happened before, happens, not very often. And so really putting forward, the ideas around what that means for workplace design and the construct around that and the framework, again, space, technology, policy, behavior, that kind of ecosystem that has to work together. Yeah.
And I was just going to add the element of respect.
Yes.
Because I think leading with respect is more important now more than any other time, because if before you could not book somebody's calendar at 6, but now we are booking calendars 6 to 9 o'clock because we know the person is at home. So it's just, in my view, lack of respect. So it's just going back to these simple fundamental principles and starting to drive some things to do equality in the past that we thought we had already overcome. And I was in a session with women across the world, including Europe, Africa, and most of the women, even though they came from different backgrounds, said that when they work at home, the husbands still expect them. They say, "Oh, is lunch ready?" There's this situation also, and I'm also working, you're working, we are both working. So in a way, I feel like we've moved a bit backward with the gender issue. We've taken some steps back, and we need to acknowledge that so that we can correct it.
No, I totally agree with that. I had to shut that off in my household in the first week when I was asked, "What are we having for dinner?" I said, "Go figure." So on that note, thank you so much. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you for our amazing attendees over here and for all the questions and everybody. And then there's one person who I really have to thank, because she's the one person behind getting all this sorted. And that's Azra, my events lead at level 3. So thank you so much, Azra, for sticking with me and all the changes and doing everything that you do so well. For all the attendees, thank you for joining us today. We would be putting this up on our YouTube channel, so you can, rehear. If you would like to connect with any of the panelists and myself, please just, right after this, we do have a feedback form. Take 2 minutes to fill it up and let us know, and we will get in touch with you. Once again, Kelly, Bancy, Nicole, thank you so much for being here today and sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.